Standing Strong with Waylon Myers.
I am Waylon Myers, and come along with us as we interview people around the world talking about life's challenging struggles.
Such as bullying, depression, anxiety, crimes, hate, and more.
These things are breaking us apart in this world. It's time we bring more kindness and courage back into the world. We stand strong together. Hello everyone, and welcome to the 40th episode of Standing Strong with Waylon Myers. I am Waylon Myers, and I just wanted to say, wow, thank you so much for all the views, love, and support. It wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for you guys and your views to make this so possible. So thank you all so much, and welcome to the 40th episode. Joining me right now is my co-host, Tyler Peters. What's up, Tyler?
Hey, what's going on, Waylon? It's always a just incredible honor to join you on a brand new episode of Standing Strong. So I'm glad to be with you, my friend.
Awesome. What is your quote for this episode?
Well, my quote's going to be short and sweet, but it's still very important. Success comes to those who act, and I think that's very appropriate. So that's what I found doing my research. I hope everybody enjoys that. I know I'm motivated because of it, just reading that short sentence.
Awesome. I love it. And now, what do you have to say about 40, being this is the 40th episode?
Oh, it's amazing. Hey, congratulations to you, Waylon, and all the guests. 40 episodes, man. What a privilege to join you. And it's celebration time. You deserve all the credit. I just want all the those who are watching to understand the magnitude of the talents of your host, Waylon Myers. And I'm just honored to be a small part of it. So, hey, congrats to you, Waylon.
Thank you so much. And we are just 9 episodes away to the 50th.
Oh, it's exciting. Hey, we're getting closer, my friend.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. I am going to read my introduction for the 40th guest on Standing Strong. Marcus William Baldwin is an actor and artist. He is known for Frat House Murders, Dhar Mann, and Everything is Fine. Marcus loves to sing and play his guitar. He is definitely an inspirational person and spreading positivity into this world. At this time, please welcome my 40th guest on Standing Strong, Marcus William Baldwin.
Hi, William.
What is up, Marcus?
Hey. How's it going?
It is going okay.
Yeah, it's going well, Marcus. Good to have you.
It is nice to have you, and it's nice to meet you as well.
Yeah. So glad to be here with you and Tyler, and I love the positive change you guys are making with this content. So happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. And at this time, before we get started into the interview, can you tell people where they can find you on social media, just in case they want to get connected with you?
Sure, of course. If you want to find me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is @Marcus_Baldwin, spelled just like my name. And if you want to find me on TikTok, my TikTok is Marcus versus VS TikTok.
So bye. So everyone, if you want to get connected with Marcus, go ahead and do so. And now we are gonna get started on with the first question. Were you a victim of bullying? If so, what advice did you follow to avoid the negativity of people's opinion about you?
Um, sure. I think I was fortunate growing up, especially in that I never had to deal with physical bullying, for example. But I think that most kids, myself included, have certainly been put down by other kids. And also, when I think back to myself growing up, I wasn't always the most sensitive or kind with my humor, at least when it came to other kids either. I would say, when you're on the end of things where somebody is putting you down or making you feel small. When I was younger, my way of dealing with it was I had a decent wit, so I would come back at them with my own joke or retort. But as I've gotten older, I think the thing that's worked the best for me is just to keep pushing forward and act as if it doesn't bother me, because most of the time I feel when someone is trying to put you in your place for whatever reason they feel the need to, it's really just a reflection of, something that they're going through, and, a need for themselves to feel
Yeah.
bigger. And when they have that need, what they're really after more than anything is a reaction out of you. They want to see that they got to you. And the less that you give them that, um, you know, generally the sooner that they will leave you alone and move on. If it gets more severe than that, and there is physical bullying, or there is, they're consistently harassing you, especially if you're a young kid, I would say then, go to somebody in charge, like a teacher or an adult, or, if they aren't around and it is physical, then, don't be afraid to defend yourself. But, for the most part, I think most of those situations can really be handled by just continuing to be yourself and pretending as if it doesn't affect you. And then you're not giving them what they're after anyway. They tend to believe to move on, I guess.
100%. I totally agree with that. Tyler?
Oh, I'm in complete agreement. I think it's important that you become strong out of your weaknesses. I think is what I'm getting at and gather from Marcus's just great answer to Waylon's phenomenal question. So there's always something we can learn from. I think it's true. So I completely concur with you, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Now, Marcus, what is your personal opinion on cyberbullying?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, the internet is such a strange thing in that it allows for great things like what we're doing right now. We're in different parts of the country, and yet we can connect and have this conversation. And that wouldn't be possible in the way that it is, especially projecting it out to everyone in the audience, if it weren't for computers. But the other sad thing, I think, is that once people get online, they get to be kind of faceless, and they don't have to hold the same level of responsibility for their actions, because they can hide behind a keyboard, they can hide behind a username, and I just think the sad thing is, and I've heard some of those horrible stories. Luckily, I've never personally known someone or been subject to cyberbullying, or at least not known someone who's it's affected to the point where it led them down a dark road, or they have told me about some terrible experience they've had. But you do see that a lot of people, especially, they will be driven to, terrible things because of cyberbullying, because it can really cripple your self-esteem when you're getting that constant reinforcement from someone else that you're not good enough or you're not worth it. And I think, the sad thing is that the internet makes it easier for people to, display that worst side of themselves because there aren't the same consequences. Which is why, I think, for anyone watching, just, I know what it's like to be a kid too, and, to try and joke around and like, I when I was younger, I would, with my friends, we'd like prank call our friends and do silly things like that. And it was never with any like intention of hurting anyone. And luckily, I don't think, as far as I know, anyone ever really was hurt by any of that because it was done in good fun. But, if you can take it from me, the older I've gotten, the more I've realized, some of my behavior, I could have been more sensitive or I could have been more understanding. And as you get older, I think you just naturally, you go through more hardships, and that makes it easier to empathize with other people who are going through them. And so be cautious, even if it seems like it's just fun in the moment, always remind yourself that, you can actually have a profound effect on other people. And, the internet can give you license to do things that you wouldn't be, courageous courageous is not the best word, because I think of courage as something more noble, but you wouldn't necessarily have the confidence to do in your regular life. If you ever feel like that, like I wouldn't do this to them in person, ask yourself why. Is it a positive thing that you're nervous about, or is it a negative thing and there's a good reason why you wouldn't do it in real life,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We just lost Tyler, but he should be back any minute. But I agree with what you just said. Now, talking about depression and anxiety, what has helped you overcome it, and what advice would you give to people around the world?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's hard. I'm fortunate in that, I've never been diagnosed with, conditions where I have, like a chemical element in me that makes me consistently depressed or anxious, at least as far as I know. But I have had people who've been very close to me who do have that problem. And if it's that severe, definitely see a doctor, see a therapist, see a psychiatrist. Medication doesn't always work for everyone, but if you have a severe issue like that, that very well may be the answer for you. In terms of what I face and what I think, your average person faces in terms of depression and anxiety, I mean, it's more common than you think.
Yeah.
One of the things that always helps me is to recognize and remember that I'm not alone. I think that there's a quote, and I might be getting the exact words wrong here, but it's kind of, the idea is that, solitude is pain. When you feel like you're going through something alone, one of the hardest things, and one of the things that's caused me the most, sorrow or pain in my personal life has been when I've been in a situation where I feel isolated, where I feel like, if I explain this to other people, they wouldn't understand me. I think we all want to feel like we're understood. And the truth is, you really can be understood. And there almost always are people who, if they don't, at least, hear you and go, oh yeah, I haven't been through that, but I know what you're saying. I mean, most of the time they've there's someone out there in your circle who's been close to the exact same thing even. And if you just, find that courage to reach out, that connection can be, really great. And nowadays, again, we were just talking about the negative side of the internet, but the positive side is, I know that I've been through situations before where I've had certain concerns and, thinking like, oh God, am I a bad person for thinking this? Or am I a loser? Am I pathetic for gone through this? And half the time, if you want, before even talking to somebody, if that sounds scary, you even just type into Google the situation you're going through, and you can find chat rooms or forums of people who've been through the same thing. So there's so many ways to find commonality, to find community, and the one other thing I would say in a more practical sense is that I find that one of the things that makes me feel the most down is when something happens and then I let it get to me to the point where I'm spending a lot of time thinking about it, which it's good to figure it out for yourself, if you can understand the root of what's causing the issue. But once you've gotten there, if you keep stewing over the same thing, I think it can actually be worse for you. And sometimes the thing that's helped me the most is just staying busy. If I can get out and go to the gym, if I can spend time with friends, if I can work on an artistic project that I really enjoy, sometimes that's even the biggest help, because if I'm going through something, it might become a song, it might become a poem, it might become a monologue or a play that I'm writing or a screenplay. But whatever outlet you have, you can find a way to express it or even just push forward and not think so much about it. Life tends to pick up and move on. And, if you were feeling down about yourself, sometimes, getting through a hard workout and going, God, I just knocked that out and I feel invigorated. That's all the proof that you need to go, you know what? I'm not, I don't need to feel so bad about myself. I just did something positive. I just did something that was self-affirming. And, that to me, that can go a long way too.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Now, on to the next question. There is a lot of crime and hate going on in this world. Have you ever experienced it firsthand in real life and not just acting? And what advice would you give to help people get help?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Fortunately, I've never, I guess, I'm trying to think. I've never been, a firsthand witness to a serious crime or serious act of violence. There were a couple times growing up where I had to physically defend myself, but it was, even then, it was more like somebody trying to kind of prove a point. It wasn't somebody trying to seriously hurt me.
Yeah.
But and luckily I kind of came out of those situations okay, and they're directed at me. I've never been put in a situation where somebody was threatening somebody who I deeply care about, or I've never been in a situation where I witnessed somebody doing something illegal, like robbing somebody or something like that. But I would say I have been in situations, even working in this industry, where people have tried to take advantage of me or colleagues. in the sense that, they lied about the work that we were doing, or they didn't pay us when they said they were going to,
Yeah.
or, they treated us as less than people once we arrived on set. That stuff totally happens. And I would say, it's tricky because you do in life have to pick your battles. If somebody puts your back against the wall in a serious instance, like you're talking about, then, I think you do need to stand your ground, and, stand for what you believe in. I think if you're put in a really difficult situation, though, and you also need to be able to forgive yourself, because that's
Yeah.
a very human thing too. It's easy for me to say that, but I mean, it's when the stakes are really high. I think most people like to say they know how they would behave, but it's kind of hard to know until you're in a situation. And I've even, in more minor situations, there have been times when I felt like, oh, I should have done more, or there have been times when I thought, oh, I did too much. It's hard to find that balance between, not escalating a situation to being more of a problem than it is,
Right.
and still standing up for what's right.
Yeah.
I've been in the situation where I've, outright, gone up to people and told them off and said, hey, you know what, this isn't right. If you're not going to, pay us, or you're not going to treat us how you want, that, that's fine. I'm not going to be a part of this project anymore.
Yeah.
That's on you. You don't have to do that. But I think the big person thing to do would be pay me and my, colleagues here for the time we put in. I think that's what's right. And, when deep down that that's what's right, I'm working, doing this acting thing full time. So it's hard. It's hard giving up money.
Yeah.
It's having to eat a few more peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as opposed to nice meals that I'd like. But,
Yeah.
In those situations, your integrity and what you stand for and who you are is important, and it's worth defending. And, I used to be kind of more cynical, and I understand you might go like, well, gosh, what about getting paid? And hey, that's important too. You got to be able to feed yourself. That's sometimes you have to put up with things that are less than what you like in order to get by, and that's normal. You got to forgive yourself for that too. But I think the real thing is, on a person-to-person basis, identifying what your core values are, what's important to you, what you think is fair. And if somebody really crosses that line, then for your own personal sake, you shouldn't stand for it, because you don't want to come away from a situation feeling like you didn't do yourself justice, like you didn't represent yourself in the world the way that you want to.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. If it's a high stakes scenario, you probably don't have a choice but to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. Now, what hardships did you experience in your life, and what were some ways you overcame them?
Right. Yeah, good question. I think we all experience loss. I think we all experience, feeling small. In terms of the acting thing, in order to make it or get work as an actor, you have to get used to being rejected a lot, and it's not even something that you should take personally, because there's so many reasons as to why it can happen to you. Sometimes it is that, hey, you know what? There was this other person who was super talented, they, you know, had this gift or they did so much training and they might have been more deserving than you in this instance. And that's okay because we're all on our own journeys that take place at our own times. And there's certainly been people I've encountered along the way where I've gone, wow, they're talented. They're a little bit ahead of where I'm at. And that's okay. You know, I think that the more that we can accept that is real and that doesn't stand in the way of still going after what we care about,
Mm-hmm.
that's important, I think, as a lesson, but it's not an easy lesson to learn. But, the other thing that's really hard about this industry is sometimes, people get the roll over you because they have the right look or they knew the director or the producer.
Yeah.
Or they happened to say the right thing in the room on a personal level. Or your face reminded the director of their ex-boyfriend. You know what I mean? And so there's just so many reasons, and you have to kind of be okay with that. In terms of personal hardship, luckily by the time I actually got out into the industry, I've been doing it about a year actually being out in LA auditioning. I was pretty seasoned, but when I was at my college, I went to Cal Arts, which is a really great art school and a good school for theater. But I definitely, not only were there plenty of people there who were more talented than I was, which in high school I was kind of the guy when I was an actor. So there was that like rude awakening for sure to go, oh dang, okay, this person is 100% more talented than me. I hadn't really had an experience that was that humbling before. But the other thing too was just like the culture of that campus was, very unique and distinct, and I didn't really, some people have these experiences in school or in life where, I didn't really find my community there. It gave me great training, but the people around me were just a bit on a different wavelength than I was. And so on top of the rigor of having to work really hard because I didn't come in, being the most talented guy there, I also, I didn't have just a strong community there. I had some very close friends who stayed with me through all the years who I'm still friends with today. One of them is even my roommate. But, I definitely, I had periods there where I felt very lonely. I had there were certain people there who I, knew for a fact, did not like me. And it's hard too when you're an actor because sometimes those are the people who in a scene you have to kiss or you have to have a fight scene with, and in the back of your mind you're going, okay, this person seems to be enjoying the part of the fight scene where they punch me in the face a little too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's hard. You have to, patience and humility are key. And I think the thing that I've told myself a lot of the time, because you deal with difficult situations through all of your life, you're always going to be in new circumstances where you have to socialize and associate with people who aren't necessarily your favorite people. Even now that I'm out of school, I'm on set with people, and not everyone's going to be, my best friend, or I have friends and they have friends, and or you have a girlfriend and she has friends or whatever, and you make connections with other people who are really, they're in your life because of another goal or another relationship. But if it weren't for that thing, they might not be in your life, right? You two would not actually choose to be in each other's company. But I would say before you go to the extreme and go, oh, well then, I'm going to cut them out of the equation and why put up with that? Sometimes it's worth it to put up with some of that stuff for the goals you have, the passions you have, the people that you love. And, again, kind of like we were saying earlier about, just not letting people get to you, just focusing on yourself and not giving that reaction. I mean, that's something that even to this day I utilize because it's important to stay connected to the things that you appreciate. And sometimes there's going to be people who put you down. They give you a backhanded compliment. I've had this thing where I did a performance and somebody comes up to you and puts their hand on your shoulder and they go, wow, man, that was really something. And you kind of go, okay. So
yeah,
I did wish you'd just tell me you didn't like it at that point. You don't have to treat me like I'm an idiot. But it's okay. You deal with that. There are people like that. And the thing to remind yourself is if someone feels the need to do that to you, they're probably struggling with something behind the scene themselves. Mm-hmm. So they don't let them get to you. If they deserve anything at the end of the day, it's most likely they deserve pity. Because if they are feeling insecure enough that in order for them to feel good, they need to put someone else down, then they're probably actually less secure in themselves than you are. So don't. The other thing is, don't take advice from, or don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. That's a line I like to live by too. If this isn't someone who you think, you would go to in a moment for wisdom in figuring out, how to live your life, then don't listen to, them when they criticize you either, because clearly their input and their opinion isn't the kind of input that you want to use as information for how to live your life. It's
Yeah, 100%.
Move on. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Everyone, Tyler Peters is having technical difficulties, so he will not be joining the rest of this interview, but he has sent me questions that he would like me to ask Marcus once we can get onto it. So Tyler wants to apologize to everyone. He is having the exact same issue that I had last Monday when we was live. So please forgive Tyler, and he says sorry. So Marcus, how have your experience affected your life long term, good or bad? Did those experiences change your goals or change the direction of your career?
That's a great question, and also I just want to say, thanks so much to Tyler. I'm so sorry to hear about that, but still you're appreciated, and thanks for sending over those questions as well.
Yeah.
I tend to think, there have been times in my life where I felt like, oh God, I went through this thing and it made me feel weaker, or I've been, put through a hard circumstance and it made me, choose something different than I initially wanted. But I think what I've come around to is realizing that even the hard parts of life, they're just lessons. They give you more information. There's a saying, you win or you learn.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so I think that's kind of what I try and live by. Am I always perfect about that? No, but I mean, even now, lately I've been feeling like, I love acting, and I've been doing it full time, paying my bills with just acting the past, 5 months, and or 4.5, 5 months, and it's been quite an experience. But I actually just recently I decided to go back to teaching part-time, not because I need it financially, but because I realized, there are aspects of this lifestyle that aren't my favorite. And there's something about making a positive difference in a very tangible, direct way where you get to see the person who's, being affected. That's important to me on a personal level to have that in my life. And part of that lesson of knowing that that's important came from doing the extreme of the other, of really following my passion and, putting it all on the table. And, you could easily look at that and go like, oh, well, he didn't get to a comfortable enough lifestyle or whatever, or as an actor within that time period, you could look at that as a failure. But, the truth is that sometimes you need to go through hardship in order to learn about yourself. And,
Right.
even earlier when, I was talking about, people dealing with difficult people, I think even when I said, don't take advice from someone you wouldn't take criticism from, that doesn't mean that you can't learn from those people still, You can still observe and learn from their good attributes, and you can still learn lessons in spite of them from the things that do cause conflict, right? And that's the kind of attitude I try and take too, is that, I used to be much more the kind of guy where I had very strong opinions. I do a lot of research in my free time. The other career path I'm sort of considering in my life right now, if I'm always going to be creative and make things and put them out there. But I'm still figuring out my relationship with acting and all of these things in my life. But the other thing that inspires me is psychology. Part of why I love acting is I love figuring out how people tick and what makes them who they are. And I just say that I've spent a lot of time reading those articles online and learning about people in my free time. And when it comes to whatever you want, science, politics, history, you can do a lot of your own research, but in a personal person-to-person basis in my day-to-day life, I found that I used to use all that information as, I don't want to say a weapon, but I would use it kind of as ammo in a conversation where I would go, well, I know this and I know that. And so when you say something that contradicts that, my impulse is to go, well, you're wrong because this, right? When now I just try and I take more the approach of like, okay, well, in my personal life, I might disagree with this person, but if I hear them out and I hear their perspective, all I stand to gain is more information. There might be something that they've considered or they've learned that I haven't. And, even if there isn't, which there always is, but even if somehow there wasn't, you even learn a bit more about like, okay, well, so there are people who exist in this world that look at things this way. And, that in and of itself is even more information about our world and our dynamics out there. And so, I would just say the more that you can, I had a teacher who taught me clowning and Shakespeare in college, and he would say, when it came to bits we were creating for performance, we'd present them to the class, and your bit would get chosen to be in the final performance or it wouldn't. And it was kind of a rigorous experience. But he would say, when you were creating the material, hold on tightly, let go lightly. And that's what I try and do is, pursue your interests with passion. But we are all capable of being wrong, and we're all capable of being better always. So when you're faced with conflicts that might make you change direction or might make you reconsider, I say embrace them, because at the end of the day, they're either going to do one of two things. They're going to reaffirm for you oh, I was right in the path I was taking, because I looked into that. I wasn't, immediately on guard. I was open and I looked into that. And you know what? It still doesn't work for me. Or it still didn't ring true to me. And that's okay. Or you did look into it and there was something to it, or something did ring true to you. And then, God, think about how much less informed or less invigorated your life would have been if that struggle or that person or that situation hadn't come along. You wouldn't be as developed or strong of a person as you are today if it weren't for that. So, in either way, be grateful, I'd say.
I love that. I totally agree with that. Now, if there is one thing that you can tell people about standing strong and staying true to themselves, what would it be?
Sure. I would say forgive yourself and always know your worth. I like to believe that I'm no better than anyone else, but I'm also no worse than anyone else. And anyone who doesn't act in accordance with that in either way, is that's their failing, right? It's not mine. So if I encounter somebody who makes me feel small, or I encounter someone and I come in with the attitude that I'm being cocky, or I feel better, I think either of those things are things that should be checked in us. And so I'm fortunate in that I come from a really good family, and a big loving family where everyone's still connected. I have my parents are still together. My aunt and uncle, my grandparents, a lot of strong relationships around me, a lot of love and community there. So I have always had a strong foundation of knowing that there are people in this world that value me and that love me and that think that I'm worthwhile. And the truth is that everyone is, I think. And the more that you can remember that, and the more that you can, when you do make mistakes, forgive yourself them, because we're all works in progress. Again, we wouldn't become better people if we weren't shown the ways in which we're falling short in the meantime, right? It's that's all part of the process. And I think the thing that's really hard about today is we're on these social media apps, and we're constantly getting a window into other people's lives, and it's hard to not compare. And it's even harder because it's a marketing tool a little bit. Even the people who aren't trying to do what I'm doing and are intentionally marketing themselves on that app, I'm selecting stuff that shows me in a certain light as an artist and an actor. And I think anyone else in the industry is doing that. But even people, your average Joe is not posting the days when they sat inside crying with a tub of ice cream. They're posting the picture of them, looking, pretty on the beach, right?
Yeah.
They're posting the picture of them with all their friends. They're posting, the picture of them getting the degree, or the thing of them at the new job. And so it's a very slanted perception of where people really are. And there's another line, as you can tell, I know a lot of sayings. That's my trick. That's one of my special talents. If you need to hear a saying, I'm just teasing. But but there's comparison is the thief of joy. It's hard. I totally respect. I've had moments where I've been like, oh God, I need to take a break from this, or I need to get off this. I think sometimes that's healthy. I think, it's good to stay connected to people. It's good to utilize the internet as a tool, but, make sure that I would say, and trust me, I'm not great about this. I need to get better at this myself. But the more that you can use, the internet today too as a tool to invigorate your life, and the less that you can let it, be the thing that's controlling you and your
Yeah.
decisions, the better, right? Don't be a slave to those notifications. Don't
Absolutely.
be on the thing for too many hours at a time, because you know what, it has great potential. It's just like our brain, right? There's a saying about your brain too. Here I go, another saying. The brain, a wonderful servant, but a horrible master. The more that we let the thoughts, the anxious thoughts, the depressive thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, dictate how we behave, the more we're going to feel down on ourselves. The more that we realize, hey, I have this amazing tool up here that I can use to create, to connect, to look on the bright side, to put a positive spin. I think the happier we are in our lives. And the same way we figure out that mindset, with social media, it's the same thing with that. You bring a certain mindset to it, you can reap what you sow there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Now, if there's one thing you can change in this world today, what would it be?
Huh.
I know there's a lot.
It's a hard question. I suppose the thing that I would change is probably just, I wish everyone were more honest. I think I mean, not that wouldn't have certain downsides, because I think that everyone has a little bit of a dark side too. I think everyone's capable of doing bad things as much as they are good things. But I still think if people were more honest across the board, I think that we all have more in common than we think we do. And I think that we all, participate in the systems and the communities that we're in very similar ways. And the more that people are just open about that stuff, I think the more that we can all realize what the actual solutions are to moving forward, regardless of what the issue is.
Yeah.
I think, when we lie, when we obscure things, and it's not to say that, like, okay, you're never going to lie. Everyone tells little lies. I'm not saying I don't believe in a white lie. You don't always need to hurt the person next to you's feelings. But I think we all, part of what is hard about being alive is, getting back to the loneliness thing, is that we don't like to share our failures or our mistakes. We don't like to share when we've done wrong. But I think if everyone did, we'd feel less alone, because we'd realize, okay, we're all going through this together. And B, I think we'd have more motivation to go, okay, well, I can forgive myself, but clearly this needs to change. And if more people came forward too, I think it would give more info on, are people behaving the way they are in the world because of personal things that are wrong with them, or, what are the things, greater systems at large influencing or incentivizing people to do. This is not a, very, high stakes aspect, but, you just look at the number of people who make like lots of money, who cheat on their taxes, for example. You know, it seems
Yeah.
like a victimless crime in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, that's less money that's going to programs. That's less money that's helping people in, you know, lower income situations who really need the help. You know, I think if you like just take that one issue, for example, if more people were open about what they're doing, you know, I think things would get better. You know, and I think in the same, you know, you could apply that, I think, to most things. You know, our behavior, our habits, they can
Yeah.
always going to be improved, and I think they're always going to be more easy to improve if we're open and honest and aware, and we, you know, approach those problems together.
Absolutely. So, I agree. Now, I'm going to go on with Tyler's questions that he has sent me. Tyler wants to know, did you always want to be an actor?
Not always. So when I was actually a little kid, I used to tell people that I wanted to be a doctor. I don't really know why. I think I just liked the idea of, you know, helping people, and I knew that, you know, doctors were, you know, supposed to be smart, and I think I wanted to, you know, be seen that way when I was a little kid. But I was, when I was growing up, I come from a big Italian family, so we're all kind of loud and gregarious, and we use our hands and we talk over each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a choice but to be kind of big and animated in order
Yeah.
to be heard. And then I got into school, and, you know, from grade school onwards, I was kind of the class clown, you know, for better and for worse. You know, I was in that weird situation where by the 8th grade, I was getting sent to the principal's office all the time for being disruptive in class, making people laugh. But then whenever they had, you know, prospective parents come to the school, and they wanted somebody who was a student to represent the school, they'd also pick me because I had the best presenting ability.
Yeah.
So, and I did assemblies. I went to a small private school. Carbon Arbor View is the name of the school. It's a great school. And they, you know, a big part of their education was, you know, we did assemblies and we would stand up and speak in front of people. So I've been speaking in front of people and being a ham since I was 5 years old. It's always been a part of my life, but I didn't get on a stage and be in an actual play until I was in high school. And when I got to high school, I went to another private school in California. It's called Webb. It's a great school. Well, I've been very fortunate. All the schools I've been to, I've been very fortunate. You know, I got there, and the theater director there, Stephanie Plumley, who, great woman. I still am in touch with her. My little sister loves her too. She just graduated from that school. But she kind of taught me that there was this deeper side to it too, where, you know, my first ever role, I was in Antigone, this Greek play. I want to say it was Sophocles who wrote it. I might be getting that wrong. It's been so long.
Yeah.
But I was this messenger, had to come in and tell the king, that his wife had just died, and in order to get me to connect to the material, my teacher kind of said, hey, you know, you can make this personal to you, and think about, like, you know, what if this king were like an uncle to you? What if his wife dies, his son ends up dying, you know, you're around the age of the son. What if you guys were childhood friends? Think about having to deliver this news to somebody in your life who, you know, you've known your whole life, who you greatly respect. And it just opened up this door in my mind where I went, oh, wow, like, this isn't just about, you know, being up in front of people and getting attention and just having a good time and playing. There is that to it as well, which is great. But I'm learning more about myself and other people by doing this, and that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. And since then, I've been doing it for 10 years now.
Wow.
Which is kind of
Amazing.
crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, the next question that Tyler has is there one thing a person can learn from the performing arts?
Oh, sure. There are lots of things. You know, I think one thing that's great about them, you know, I'm about to start working with these kids again. In fact, today I'm starting my teaching artist training again, because I'm going to start teaching these kids in these schools. But I've done it before as a volunteer, and I used to do an internship with a company in the past.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, I just think about when I've been able to work with them, the kids that I work with. It's called The Unusual Suspects theater company. It's a great company. At least all my experiences with them have been great. And I had the chance to work with kids who were in underserved communities, and also incarcerated, so in like juvenile detention centers and juvenile halls. And when you introduce them to theater, it's always impressive to me the outlet that it becomes for your average person to just express themselves and feel seen and heard. And I mean, they the way the program works is you do it generally. There's a one like 2-month season where they write their own play, and then another 2-month season where they put the play on and actually perform it. And the sophistication of the material, I mean, it's wonderful. But you know, I always see that these kids, you know, the amount that they open up and they start to embrace who they really are through this you know, storytelling. You know, that's the thing that's always drawn me to acting, is really storytelling. And everyone under the sun has a story to tell. And I think, you know, as you know, I know some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, but I think deep down, everyone kind of wants their story to be heard in some way.
Yeah.
Even when I've written stories or I've been in plays that are stories that are very different from my life, you know, I always find myself in the material in some respect, even if it's a situation I've never been in, or the character is committing actions I would never do. You know, you learn about yourself because you put yourself in the middle of this story. And I think God, like, even as just a hobby, I really think that in terms of finding self-actualization and figuring out, you know, more about who you are and what's important to you, and expressing things that you might have been holding in, the whole thing is such a therapeutic experience, and it's such a great learning experience on a personal level. No matter how seriously you want to take it, professionally or otherwise, it's something I'd recommend to anybody. And I've seen firsthand the tremendous difference it can make in those kids, many of whom, just because of the unfortunate situations they've, you know, been born into, you know, really need it and really improve from it. So
yeah, absolutely. Now the next question he has, he wants you to tell him about someone who has influenced you positively?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's so many artists and actors and creators that have influenced me over the years and that I've taken deep dives into to learn about. Um, some of them surprised me, and it's kind of a long list, but I mean, even in my personal life, I think, teachers I've had have been a big influence on me. Um, my I've mentioned my theater director in high school, but I also, I had great teachers at Cal Arts. I mentioned my clowning and Shakespeare teacher as well. Daniel Passer is his name, and um, I've there have been others who've taught me a lot. But even just on a personal level, like growing up, my dad was always kind of my hero, and my family. I still look to them in a lot of ways to figure out who I am, and I think in terms of like aesthetics as an artist and a performer. Strategically, I've looked at people who play similar roles and look similar to me. I've studied Sean Penn's career. I've studied, Adrian Brody's career. I've studied, like Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. I think that whole show, that's probably my favorite dramatic television show. Comedically, my favorite show is a three-way tie between Seinfeld and Everybody Loves Raymond and Frasier.
Yeah.
I mean, but I also, God, I know way too much about early rock and roll. I'm a huge Chuck Berry fan. I know way too much about, underground hip hop. I used to rap a little. God help me. So many things I think come to inform your art and your artistic practice. Even the people that I went to school with, my peers and my colleagues, even though, like I said, I kind of didn't find so much community with all of them. I still find that, some of my motivation to put myself out there and do good work came from seeing people next to me who were taking it really seriously and playing their craft and sometimes even there came motivation from wanting to do things in spite of people going like, okay, yeah, you know what, you are talented and maybe you don't like me, but well, look at this, or you know what I mean. And I don't want to say that that's the best path to take, but I think that's real. I think that every artist's journey has struggle to it, and I would just say again, you can learn from anything. I mean, I'm surprised how much since the pandemic hit, reality TV I've watched, which I used to just think was, oh God, I never want to watch that stuff. And now I feel like, oh, you know what? There's something to this to be learned as an actor. So, I mean, I have new influences every week, I'd say, but hopefully I covered some of the bigger ones.
Awesome. Now the next question he has: what is a common method about your field of expertise?
Oh, what's a common method of my expertise, like?
Yeah, expertise. Yes.
Gosh, for one, I have a lot of training behind me. I in college, I basically went to like a conservatory program in disguise.
Yeah.
I got a BFA. Cal Arts' education's about 60% art and 40% other academics, and even that's probably generous. Their general ed classes are pretty pretty standard, pretty easy to pass. It's pretty much you're focused on your artistic craft, and so I learned so many tools there. I learned Meisner and Stanislavski, and I learned Grotowski, and I learned about Shakespeare, and I learned clowning, and I learned voice and speech, Linklater, and the Lopez Barrantes method, which is this kind of method that one of the teachers there was pioneering. That seems very influenced by Roy Hart, and I mean, there's so many. I mean, I even studied abroad when I was there at BADA, the British American Drama Academy, and then I learned from a bunch of professors in England and from Yale and all sorts of things. There's so many techniques I've learned over the years, and they've all informed my practice. But I think the biggest struggle, if there's anything that I still do my best to keep in mind today, it's really just so much of it's about just being present and listening. And the hardest thing for me, because I've always been, I love theater and I found theater, but I've actually, even though I never took school too seriously, I've always had academic and intellectual interests. I'm kind of a nerd deep down. And I've always been good at the research side of acting. I love to do all the background on the characters that I play. I love to invest all that time into thinking about what happened in their lives and what makes them the way they are. But the key is, from my experience, you do all of that before you hit the stage or before the cameras are on. But once you hit the stage and the cameras light on and it's action, then you just got to be yourself, and you just got to be in the moment, and you have to just trust that work that you did ahead of time is there, and don't be limited by it though, because once you're there and there's a person across from you and they're saying impactful things to you, all you can really hope to be is honest. And if you aren't, people are gonna see. They're gonna see that you're trying to put something on, that you're trying to lie. The dirty little secret is, it's the Stanislavski line is, living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. In all of my best performances, I have genuinely felt the emotions I've been going through. I've actually put myself through it, and it's not an easy task. It's not for everyone, but it is deeply rewarding in its own way.
Absolutely, 100%. Tyler wants to know if there is any movies that you will recommend for those watching if they haven't seen them yet.
Oh yeah, there's so many. One thing I do wonder about is the age of people watching.
Yeah,
because there are so many great films that I would love to recommend, but they might be a little bit adult. I just watched this movie, and it's not a recent movie. It's called Ordinary People, with Timothy Hutton and Donald Sutherland, and oh my God, I'm forgetting Mary Tyler Moore is the mother. And I think I have to double check on this, but I want to say it might have even been Robert Redford as the director. Like, it might have been one of his first films, but I'm pretty sure Timothy Hutton, who plays the son, got the Oscar. It is an adult film, but this this audience that we're talking to, I see that a big part of what you're talking about is overcoming struggles in life, and that movie deals with the struggles that can come from family dynamics and the struggles of overcoming suicidal thoughts. And I think it's such an honest and beautiful film. I just saw it too, and I was really blown out of the water by it. But again, if you're 12 to 14, and maybe talk to your parents about that film before you go watching it, or wait a little while. I'm trying to think what's a good. I mean, there are some. I don't know. I think also, there's some great messages in films that are family friendly too. Like Pixar is pretty consistently great. I thought Inside Out was another great movie. Maybe that's a better place to start if you're dealing with difficult emotions, or you're working on becoming stronger, standing strong. I think that's a wonderful movie. I love the message it sends about being able to take the good with the bad. The importance of letting yourself be sad sometimes. But yeah, gosh, I'm trying to think. I think so many movies too. I think like Up is another great one. I think I love Monsters Inc. too. I don't know how profound the message of Monsters Inc. is, but I grew up with that movie. But I think there's so many more things that I want to recommend. Oh, you know what? I guess another good movie that I just saw. Maybe I've just been watching movies and things with therapists in them lately, because as I was telling you, I'm thinking about all of the psychology stuff and considering that road for myself a little bit as of late. But I went and watched Good Will Hunting again recently. Another movie that's a little bit more adult in terms of its language, but I think has some really sage advice about following your heart as opposed to your abilities. But yeah, I think I don't know. You tell me, Waylon. I could keep going, but I have a feeling that maybe most of these movies are a little out of the
Most of them are not PG. If anyone who is young,
none of these are outside of the Pixar ones. They're not G or PG as far as I know.
Yeah, I have my talk show and stuff set up to 18 and up. So hopefully there's no youngies in them.
Oh, okay.
So, yep.
Okay. Well,
Yep. So now next question that Tyler has. Is there any hobbies that you find interesting?
I'm sorry. Any what that I find interesting?
Hobbies.
Hobbies
like sports.
Oh,
games.
hobbies. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yes. I love to. I think, as you mentioned, I love to play guitar and sing a bit. That's sometimes I put little things out there. I think the thing out of all of that I'm best at is the songwriting side, because I really love to write. But I have fun doing the other stuff too. It's more of a hobby, a work in progress. I like to dance hip hop from time to time. I think that I love to stay active and moving, and that's a great way to keep up on that. I work out regularly, lift weights. I try and get in yoga classes where and when I can to stay flexible.
Awesome.
For a while there, I was teaching myself Spanish on Duolingo, which I need to get back on the horse. I need to do that again because I was really enjoying that. And then yeah, I like staying educated. I mean, I don't know. Recently, I've I've been a little bit more taking some time away from all the information there is out there about politics in our world because it can be overwhelming. And for my own mental health, I've been of course focusing more on skills lately, but I do think in the long run, it's valuable to me to stay educated and understanding and knowing and aware of things when it comes time to vote, for example, and I also I love looking into articles on things that I enjoy, listening to podcasts, watching TV and movies as well when I can. But yeah, specifically stuff about psychology interests me in terms of my reading as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Now the final question that Tyler has. Talk about your experience starring in the Dhar Mann YouTube series.
Yeah, of course. I've actually I've been through a lot of gigs out there, and working with Dhar Mann's team has been one of my favorite things that I've done. And not only, and I would say objectively, it's probably the most notable thing that I've done. I was surprised to find that people were recognizing me in public for having only been in a couple of his videos.
Mm-hmm.
It's so big, and I know how important it is to so many people. And I imagine, I don't know how many people we have in the audience, but I imagine most of the people who are here for me are probably from that. But I, even outside of all of that, which is totally fun and cool, but not really the reason that I do it. The directors I've worked with are very talented. They have a great eye. The crews that I've worked with, the same, and they've all been really great people. The actors that I've had the chance to work with have been, very kind. And, specifically, I had the chance to work with Azim Vecchio, who I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But he's been a real friend to me as well. And, God, it seems like he's becoming bigger and bigger every day. And he's been nice enough to, invite me to a couple of events and things, and just be supportive. And I just think it's really, sometimes you get on big sets and it's kind of like, wow, I'm a part of this big thing, but then the people around you are cold, or they're rude to you, or they're not considerate. But the thing that's been nice about Dhar Mann, and maybe it's partly because it is a YouTube production, so they know what it's like to start from scratch, from nothing. But everyone I've encountered there, has just been really kind and good people, and they always treat you right, and pay you well, and there's the crafty is set up, and it's just like, it's a very good set environment to be an actor. And in this industry, that is not always so common, and it's actually generally when you're doing indie YouTube things, even less common because they have less of a budget. But they are great, and I've enjoyed the material I've gotten to work on. I wasn't a consumer of Dhar Mann before I worked on it. I didn't watch it. It's not necessarily, targeted at someone my age, but I will say that the artistic process of working with it, they really treat you as a collaborator, and they let you bring yourself to the table, and I just think it's great, and it's impressive to me too, because when I was a kid watching videos on YouTube, I used to watch like Smosh and like Fred and like all those like things where it was just guys, in their house with a camcorder, not even like on like a digital camera, just shooting silly stuff. And I used to just love that. And now, the stuff that's being put out there for kids to watch, I mean, they have full crews putting it together with gaffers and lighting and makeup and hair, and it's just, it's honestly like it's maybe, I've been on a few sets that are, kind of have bigger productions, but it's about up there with most of the biggest productions I've been on. It's amazing. Truly, it's an amazing thing that they've created there, and I've never actually met Dhar Mann personally, but from everything I've heard, he's a really great guy himself, and so I just I got nothing but good things to say about them, truly.
Yeah. Now, is there anyone on the Dhar Mann set that you have never worked with that you would love to work with one of these days?
Gosh, well, I've worked with the directors Joe Russ and Seth. I want to say Pavano is his last name. I have to double check that, but he's on Instagram as Quablo, KW. They're both very talented, and I really appreciate it. I also did I've done a couple of smaller gigs with the other directors where I was more featured background. I had a line or two. I worked very briefly with the director Rushi, and I'd have to check his last name, but he was definitely. I enjoyed the little time I had working with him. I'd love to work with him again on like a bigger project. When I worked with the other two directors, I was the lead role, and so I got to really spend a lot of time work, in a deeper fashion with them. But yeah, I'd definitely be interested in working with him again. In terms of other actors, I totally be down to work with Azim again anytime. He's a great guy. Ryan, I met him at the party. He's clearly a really good guy too. I'd be happy to work with him. Same with Avery. I mean, really, everyone I've met is really great. I'm not too picky, I'd say.
Awesome. Now, my last question for you. How would you rate Standing Strong to the viewers, and what has your experience been like being on my show?
Oh, it's been a great time. I think, I really appreciate what you're doing here, and this opportunity to talk about real things, about life, and it's always interesting to me, now that I have done this Dhar Mann stuff. I get kids seeing me in public or in my DMs, and they seem to say that they, look up to me, which is kind of, it's so cool, but it's also, it's sometimes it seems silly or even wrong to me, because I'm just your average guy from my perspective. And I've, there have been people who I've looked up to who then, as I've gotten to know them better, I've realized, oh yeah, they're just a person too. So the thing I love about this show and this format is I hope, if there are those kids out there who at all view me in that way, that this is at least an opportunity for them to see that, hey, I'm just somebody else figuring it out as well. And, if you are struggling out there, that's totally normal. And I think what Waylon, what you do here, in, getting to the root of, the common issues that we all face and the common struggles that we all have, it's important stuff. Because, the thing I always worry about, is that I don't want to create some illusion by being somebody who might be viewed in the public eye that my life is perfect, or that you should envy me. If you're a fan of mine, if you appreciate the work that I do, then, so much love to you. But also, just remember, like, even the people who are far bigger celebrities and way more powerful and interesting than I am, they're just people too. We're all just people trying to figure it out. And so if you look to me at all, I'm flattered, but also, there's, in my opinion, my humble opinion, there's nobody out there who deserves your worship. There's nobody out there who, has got it all figured out. And you know what? You, everyone out there in the audience, you're all gonna figure it out. I know.
Absolutely.
It. And I'm so glad you have someone like Waylon with this show to help you to do that. So.
Yeah. Thank you for your feedback and your comment. I appreciate it. I want to thank you so much for being my 40th guest on Standing Strong. Once again, can you just promote your social media just in case if someone missed at the beginning?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, my social media is, if you want to find me on Instagram, you can find me at Marcus_Baldwin, spelled just like my name, MARCUS_BALDWIN. Or if you want to find me on TikTok, I'm there at Marcus, MARCUS versus VS TikTok. So yeah, Marcus versus TikTok. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Marcus. Tyler will try to be back next week if he can figure out his issues he was having. And before we end this live, I just want to make a special shout out to my friend Brenda Davis. Today is her birthday, so happy birthday, Brenda. I hope you have an awesome day. And again, Marcus William Baldwin, thank you so much for being the 40th guest on Standing Strong. I will catch you later. Thank you for your time. And until the next episode, everyone, remember, we stand strong together.